Today on the breakdown, Ike Haxton returns, much like Batman. They both wear a mask, a cowl. You never know what's going on underneath there. Who are they? It's unclear. You never see Ike Haxton and Peter Parker together in the same room, so just something to think about. Anyway, it's a $200,000 Triton buy-in event. There's 25 players left. First place is over $5 million, people. And this hand is Ike Haxton flexing. It's Ike Haxton being like, I'm Mr. Universe up in here, homie. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger pumping iron with with mask on and Ike Haxton instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know how it goes. Anyway, he's up against Artur Martirosyan in a hand that is, it is interesting. Lots of interesting decisions for both of these players in this extremely high-stakes spot. We're going to get into it right now on The Breakdown with Grant Dennison and Jonathan Levy.
I don't know if anybody's ever confused Ike Haxton for Arnold Schwarzenegger before. That's an interesting comparison.
Do you think I confused him for?
Yeah, it
Arnold
seems like you
Schwarzenegger?
did. You thought he was Schwartz. You thought he was the Schwartz.
The Schwartz.
That's what you thought.
It's not a tumor. It's not a river.
Who was your daddy and what does he do? That's
nice.
That's a fun one. Kindergarten Cop. Don't watch it. It's not very good. So Ike Haxton, you also said returns. He never went away. He showed up on that beach in the WPT with his hair flowing in the breeze, and he's been with us ever since. He's never left. Yeah,
but he returns to the breakdown. We haven't done an Ike Haxton hit in a while. But you are right. It's been forever since that. That was the early days of the WPT on television.
Yeah.
It was the
Tribal
PCA.
Channel.
It was the PCA.
Yeah.
And they were doing it outside. Remember they put the cards underneath little plastic holders so it didn't blow away. His
hair was so long it was flowing in the wind. That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Who made that decision? It's like, hey, we're in a consistently windy place. Let's play cards outside for millions of dollars. Like,
maybe they thought it'd be better for the TV or something like that. The show of it. They were still figuring out. They stopped doing it, I think, after that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For anybody who's ever tried to play poker outside, usually it doesn't go that well, right? Because any wind is a problem.
Yeah. It's hard.
You know what outside is known for? Is for having wind sometimes.
And also check raising turns. Outside check raises turns like at a high frequency, like just station. You got to station them. Hold on.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. Hey, we're not going to talk about him right now, but I want to talk quickly about Vladimir Korzinin.
Yes. Okay,
Gambledore. Because he burst onto the scene during this Triton series, and what a breath of fresh air for poker this guy is. Like, just like the richest man in the world who's been living on the street, basically, is what he seems to be in Estonia. And he's just like completely not a pro and just like having a great time and just like smiling at everybody while he looks like he hasn't bathed for years. It's amazing.
Right.
He's
Guy La Liberté with all the money, but if Guy La Liberté was still living on the street and didn't care at all about the results in poker.
And had hair follicles on top of his head.
Yeah, of course. Well, right. And on top of his head too. But like he does look like he could be standing, in the middle of the street at the stoplight, and then walking down, and like looking at doors and like with flowers or something, hoping to get a little money. He really does.
I don't mean this disparagingly, but he doesn't look like he has it as put together as you described just now. Like that's like a plan and like has an idea of how he's gonna make himself better and get some money and stuff. This guy,
you know what they say,
looks like he just wandered into the casino. Yeah, and the casino's like, "Do you want to play in this $200,000 tournament?" He's like, "What? Oh yeah, okay, sure, why not?"
Do you know you can go to the some of the really high end conferences and sit not in the conference itself because that's too easy, but if you sit outside the conference, like in a city, you can play billionaire or homeless person and really not know. Like that's a very normal thing because the billionaires do not care. They have no one to impress. People throw themselves at them anyway, sexually and otherwise. Everyone wants to be their friend. They don't have to do anything and they don't try in that way. And so it can be very challenging actually. So he's a great example of billionaire or homeless person, the game.
I guess
which
he
is
I don't
coming,
think that
which is coming
applies-
to a Walmart near you, by the way.
That obviously
Milton
doesn't
Bradley.
apply to every billionaire. Like all of the most famous billionaires, like have it put together and care a lot what people think about them, pretty much.
Of course. But I'm saying in terms of how people dress and how they physically present themselves, it is a known thing that like those are the guys who like if you go into a big meeting, the guy you really want to pitch is the guy who's not wearing a tie. You know, the guy who's not dressed well. That's the guy who's in charge because he's the only one who can get away with it. You know, that's how it always works.
I went to a high school friend's wedding like 6 or 7 years ago, and we had a group of 7 high school friends who were all like super tight in high school, but I moved away and like kind of drifted away from that group a little bit. So of the 7 of us, I was the only one who wasn't a groomsman in the wedding, but I still had like enough status to hang out with the groomsmen, like in the groom suite and stuff. So I was basically a groomsman without having to wear the suit and stand next to him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when we were walking around, I was wearing like this, like a hoodie and jeans, and they were all wearing suits. And I was like, I look like a tech billionaire and you guys all work for me, basically.
Right.
Is what it looks like right here.
Yeah. It's cool, right?
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Dress down, motherfucker. Dress down.
Yeah, you're good at it. I gotta tell you, you're prepared to be a billionaire in that way. I'll let you have that
Just for the job you want, not the job you have, right?
Yeah, which has always been the best advice. So, yeah, like I want to be like a garbage collector wearing a suit. That's a good idea. Is that how that works? Can you do that? And then you eventually become a CEO?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think it's not like that. I think it's more like if you're a garbage collector and you want to be like the guys who, when there's potentially a murder and the body could be in the lake and you have to drag the lake. So you know, the scuba guys, you got to, if you go to work every day though in your wetsuit and the flippity floppity is on your feet and all that, you know, you're breathing apparatus.
With an oxygen tank. You have to practice carrying the oxygen tank.
Exactly. You don't think someone's going to notice that and say like, maybe we got him in the wrong place. Of course they are. It's the other move, by the way, is just to walk into that office and say, hey, I want a job, and put your hand out there and shake their hand and ask them directly. Those are the 2 ways to get a job.
Confidence and eye contact. That's all you need. You can become anything.
When I was your age, Grant, I would just walk right into the newspaper, to the post office, to the pharmacy and say, I'd like a job, please. And they gave me money.
When you were 38? Yeah, I bet you did. I was actually having this thought recently, speaking of like how hierarchies work. Now that a lot of office work is work from home, at least partially, there's an interesting thing at play. Like my wife is often working from home. So it got me thinking, like, do you think in industries that have upward mobility available, there would be an advantage to have not a setup like this, like we have, because we look like podcasters, not like we're working, but if you had like a higher quality audio than everybody else, do you think that gives you a slight leg up? If you like get a nice microphone for your phone, do you think maybe you get promoted a little bit more likely than your counterparts?
I think without a doubt. I think better lighting, better microphone, all that stuff, both in obvious ways and non-obvious ways, it helps you. Like in some ways, like people who notice that and actually, they may just say like, wow, his mic is better. And like, that's someone who cares more about his job, right? That's someone who cares more about being heard and cares more about the quality. And that's someone you would be more apt to promote anyway. But also you may not even notice it, but they look a little bit better. They sound a little bit better. And something about that makes them more persuasive or more charismatic to you. And you like them a little bit more. Like it helps no matter what. I think it really does matter. There was a guy, this is pre-Uber, okay? This is like way pre-Uber. This is like in the 90s or something like that. But my mom rode in a taxi where they had like waters and it was really clean. And there were newspapers and stuff like that. It was in New York City when she was visiting there one time. And she'd never seen anything like that, because like all taxis in America, that is not the case. Now a little bit more so because Uber's changed that. But that was not the case at all in the 90s. It just got in the back. It was kind of dirty and shitty, and that was that. And so she said, like, do you make more money because you do this? And the guy said, I don't know why the guy answered this way, but he said, yeah, we figured it out. And I make like $100,000 more than the normal taxi driver because
holy
I do
shit.
This. Yeah. It was like, whoa, like the tips are that much better, basically, because people like get a different experience and it works, you don't have to ask anything. You just give them a different experience and they respond.
Cool. Well, maybe we changed somebody's life just now, some office person who like has a work from home job with upward mobility. And they're like, you know what? The poker guys are right about this. I should give this a shot. Congratulations. Right. You just got promoted. Thanks to the poker guys. Give us some money. Send us some money.
I mean, what we want is just a small perpetual percentage of income for life, of your income for your life.
Just like 5%.
That's all. You know what? Let's not be greedy. 4.5%. Okay.
No, I'm talking 5%. Oh yeah. Okay. I was saying total.
Oh, that's that's crazy.
I was being generous.
That guy's being greedy now, or that woman, of course, are being greedy. No, 4.5% each. That's 9% total. It's basically like tithing to your church, except it's us. And did your church tell you to buy the nice microphone? Probably not.
No.
Anyway,
consider us the new Mormonism. Deal with it.
I love it.
That's what we are.
I love it
too.
Right to the top.
I love it too. Anyway, let's get down to business here.
Yeah, it's time.
Before we start the hand, I want to talk about a new show we've been doing recently called Table Talk. It's on this podcast feed. If you're listening on a podcast app, it comes up along with the breakdown. It's labeled Table Talk instead of the breakdown. It's typically around 10 minutes or less. And what we've been doing so far is talking about hands that we've played with each other, like we're on break at a tournament, basically. It's like a casual vibe, and we think it's really good and it's really fun. We also are going to talk about other concepts as well. But what we also want is to talk to other people about hands that they've played. So if you join our Discord, there's a lot of stuff you can do there. It's a newly revamped Discord, by the way, by our long-suffering intern. Yes, we have a real intern now, paid intern.
I know, it's weird.
Unfortunately, a paid intern. But we have a Table Talk suggestions section. That's a place where you can fill out a form to actually try to be on the show with us and talk about your hand. There's also, of course, breakdown suggestions that you can do on Discord and general talk about all of the shows that we put out and, poker talk in general and other things. So join the Discord. There's a link in the description of this podcast and video.
It's a great opportunity if you want to hear our take on your hand, not the way like you give us the whole hand and then we react to it having known everything, but like you would be just telling us the hand. You tell us and you say, all right, on the turn, how much would you bet? Before we know what you bet and before we know what happened and we both come up with our answers, then you tell us what you did and we all react to it and then we move on. And we do the whole thing in 10 minutes. You're going to love the show if you like the show anyway. But yeah, I think you should strongly consider participating on the Discord.
Yeah, and our intern will vet the hands for us. We will not know the hand going in, so we won't have any preconceived opinions going in. It'll just be a genuine conversation as if you had just played this hand on at a tournament. You are bothering us at the tournament break while we're trying to fucking hang out and not talk about poker for 10 minutes.
Leave us alone. But not in this way.
This time we want you to bother us.
Yes.
All right. So let's get down to the hand that we're going to talk about today. A hand that, unlike the Table Talk hands, is a hand that none of us are ever going to play for these stakes against these types of players in this spot. It's just not going to happen. It's just so unlikely. Unless we wake up one day in Vladimir Korzin's body and decide to go play 200K.
Whoa, that's a weird thing to say. Okay.
Like a Freaky Friday. Friday.
So you run into each other and you fall over and now now I'm doing podcasts with him, but in your body.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that might spice up the show, but anyway, yes.
Yeah. It probably
Let's talk about this hand.
All right. So it's a 200K buy-in. So very serious buy-in. 25 out of 102 entrants remain. So we're not in the money yet. 17 get paid. So it's kind of like we're approaching the bubble, but in a tournament like this, with 8 players until the bubble, it's really quite far away. It's probably going to be a couple levels.
Yeah, at least.
So we should consider our tournament life, but we need to also be chipping up at this point. So it's 15K and 30K. By the way, this was suggested on Discord by just a guy getting by. So getting by suggestion. This person has gotten a suggestion through before, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, maybe.
All right. So a player named Artur Martirosyan, who I know nothing about.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I know anything about Martirosyan.
He's been around for a while. He's been on the scene.
All right, well, I'm going to Hendon him real quick.
Okay.
Artur Martirosyan.
He's also in cash games.
He's from Europe. Oh, he has a lot of winnings. Yeah. He has 18 million in winnings.
Right. He's
a real deal. 69th on the all-time money list. Okay.
Right. It's weird you don't know him.
It is weird. I am a loser because they don't know the marts. The mart, that's what they call them.
Right. The mart. Like, not Kmart, not Walmart, the mart.
No, Kmart, that guy's never going to play in this tournament either. So Martirosyan opens the hijack with jacks to 60K. He started the hand. Well, I figured it out and then I didn't write it down. Foolish me. I think it was 585K, something like that.
So like 20 blinds because it's 30K big blind.
Yeah. He's like a little bit under 20 blinds.
Okay. 19 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously willing to get it in with 20 blinds here.
Of course.
It folds to Haxton in the big blind, who doesn't have much more. He has 630K in his stack. And he's got the 8-5 of diamonds, and he defends. Seems reasonable so far. Everything's going well. Yep. Are you ready for it to get unreasonable?
Yes.
185K in the pot. The flop is Queen of Clubs, 6 of Diamonds, 6 of Hearts. This is one of those tricky flops with a hand like Jacks, right? Because it's like, it's pretty good overall. I'm usually winning, but there's 2 hand types that really hurt me, and any queen or any 6, and I'm like, basically, I need a jack. So it's pretty good, but it would be better if it was like queen 6-5, I think.
It's really hard to get value with jacks now on this board, right? Like if we check, we're giving him free shots to beat us if he's behind still. Yeah. And if we're ahead, we're rarely going to get called when we bet, right? Like if he's losing, he's often just going to throw his hand away. And by the way, if he chooses to bluff, it's hard to defend. Like it's a really rough spot. This is a very common thing with jacks. It's one of the reasons why people hate it so much. But I don't hate him, but a lot of people do. It's hard to play this hand because of this type of a board.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about what he should do. Haxton checks. So what should Martirosyan do here? I think you could really argue for a check back because against a player like Haxton, he's going to recognize that from a sub 20 blind open, Martirosyan does not have many 6s in his range. And I know Haxton doesn't have that many more chips, but he's out of the big blind. So he clearly has the range advantage as far as how often he has trips, like very clearly.
No question. The only thing is because they're sub 20 big blinds, if Martirosyan has king queen, let's say, I assume he's never folding if like Haxton decides to make a play at him, right? Like so, Haxton could take a shot, and he might on this kind of a board because of the trip 6 potential, But because everyone's so short, Martirosyan may, with a bunch of hands, and maybe even this one, just feel like obligated to stick around. I don't know if he would with this one per se. I mean, I actually do know a lot about this, but I'm claiming I don't. But like with like top pair, sub 20 blind, you probably just have to hold on, right?
Right,
like
but you're only referencing the spot we're in right now where Haxton does not have a 6, but like I'm talking about also Haxton actually just has 6s a fair amount of the time.
Oh, for sure. Oh, no question about it. And by the way, he can also have queens, and he can play aggressively with a queen because if a queen is losing, he's probably going broke anyway because there's sub 20 blinds. So he can decide to play aggressively if he wants to. That way too.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I want to just check back as Martirosyan and like figure it out as we go because I know we can clean up equity, but not that much equity. We can clean up random King X and Ace X equity. King we would have obviously heard of like pre-flop. So
there's more random King X and Ace X though as part of Ike's range than probably normal because we started so short, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, Ike may be jamming some of his ace X's though, because we're so short. So maybe that actually takes away some of the aces, but like Ike has less of the sort of random 2 cards that are barely connected and barely a call because he just can't really afford to even make the call here with stuff like 8-5 of diamonds is probably a little bit close even. Yeah. I mean, it's fine that he called, but probably a little bit close. So there's less junk that might normally be in the big blinds range here too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even if Haxton has a decent amount of ace X and king X, there's also like not that frequent of an ace or a king coming. There's only 2 overcards to the queen. So I personally want to check back. I think Martirosyan decides to bet, and I think it's probably because there's just so much value in picking up the chips right now. Like just let's not let anything funky happen. He's going to bet 1 blind. He bets 30K into 185. So it's like,
I mean, that's
free
fine,
basically.
Yeah. Like whatever. Like,
but it does create the situation where Haxton now has an opportunity, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, Haxton has an opportunity no matter what we bet, really, right? As Martirosyan. But yeah, I mean, betting so little and getting to clean up the equity so cheaply. And by the way, Haxton can have ace highs and call a little bit. Not very much, but a little bit. He can have small pocket pairs, I guess, and decide to call. Like maybe he has like pocket threes and can call one blind once. Maybe. I don't know. I understand the allure of checking here for sure. Because we're so short, though, if we check, Haxton can go bet, and essentially get us all in anyway. Like, we're not even really protecting our stack. All we're doing is giving Ike a little more rope. But by betting one blind, we're also giving him some rope. Not as much, but some rope there, too.
Yeah. I mean, it would be big bets to get us all in if we check back.
Yeah, no, Ike would have to bet really big on turn and river. But that's not unusual anymore, you know? You bet 6.5 blinds on the turn, you can get it on the river.
That's not really happening, though. I mean, like, I think you're thinking of when you're deeper. Like, when we're at around 20 blinds, people are just betting smaller. It's just what's happening, typically.
But on flop, but on turn, people are still, I think, betting much bigger.
I don't think that's accurate when SPR is as it is.
Maybe you're right.
Anyway, he does bet the one blind, and Haxton, of course, is going to grab the bull by the horns.
Yep.
And you can justify check raising here for lots of reasons. One would be we have a lot of sixes. Another would be we would probably do it with a queen a fair amount of the time too, due to SPR. We don't like when he bets one blind. It's like reasonable to check raise a queen. It's not completely insane. Although we could assume that sometimes he's going to call with a queen. And he has a combo that actually makes some sense, where he has the backdoor straight flush draw with the 8-5 of diamonds, because the 6 of diamonds is out there. Now, I think it might actually be better to do this with the 8-5 or 7-5 in particular of spades or clubs, because then we would block Martirosyan's potential sixes, because if he's opening suited connectors. With the diamonds, we do not block his potential sixes because the 6 of diamonds is out there. So this might not actually be the best combo, despite having some backdoor equity. When we're this short, the backdoor equity is not nearly as valuable as the blocker, I would think, for the frequency with which the initial play works.
I wonder how many sixes. I wonder if Martirosyan even has 7-6 suited, though, when he starts at 19 blinds in this field where he's going to get 3-bet a reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say.
He may just not have that hand. He may just throw the hand away. And if that's the case, he may not have any sixes except pocket sixes, maybe ace-6 suited, maybe. Just when he's this short, specifically, you know, where you're like, when you're this short, you're almost looking more to, rather than open, to like 3-bet people and like get more chips that way. You know, it's like easier and better to do that. So
it's interesting if that theory is true and he only has ace-6 suited. Obviously, that makes it a little more precarious to bet at all in this flop because Haxton would recognize that. Also, it makes it interesting that Haxton's best blockers would be black aces. Like either black ace would be his number one best blocker to have in this situation, which is so weird to think about on the queen 6-6 all red board.
Yes, that is very odd. You're right. Oh, the ace of clubs. He only has one combo of a 6 now. I gotta attack. Yeah. I cut those in half. Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of attacking as Ike the queen 6-6 board. I like doing it when we're deeper. I think it's more effective when we're deeper, for sure. Like we can threaten so much more, like with turns and rivers, you know, if we were to attack here, attack meaning check raise. But because he's the guy who can have sixes for sure, and Martirosyan, as we're saying, can have maybe 0 sixes, except quad sixes, and maybe a 6 of clubs and spades, maybe. Like that's pretty incredible.
Well, and we're also like, I think often when we're talking about SPR, you may be thinking about it in terms used maybe 10 years ago as far as what's a good or attackable SPR. But especially in these tournament formats where people are short, like they're just playing smaller pots. So like Haxton allows himself to raise to 80K over 30K in a 185K pot. You know, we're just dinking around. That's just how it works because of ICM and SPR stuff.
Well, you're looking for the insta-fold right now, right? That's one of the good outcomes for Ike is, you know, King 10 suited just throws his hand away right away, right? Like that's already pretty great. And we get to chip up a little bit too. And we don't expect a hand like, ace queen to fold.
No.
Or even any queen probably to fold.
No, I think queens are probably holding on mostly.
I think so. I mean, certainly on the flop, they have to, right? Yeah, but that's okay. There aren't that many queens in Martirosyan's range. And if Martirosyan is betting this flop for one blind, he's probably, when he chooses one blind, that means he's probably betting this with a very high frequency this flop, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Queen 6-6, that's supposed to miss Ike a lot. So that means like he just has so many insta folds when we check raise.
Yeah. He doesn't insta fold. Obviously, it wouldn't be breakdown hand.
Yeah.
And this may be because of the assessment of his pre-flop range. Like maybe Martirosyan really doesn't have any sixes or just ace six suited. Therefore, he needs to defend this check raise with more than just a queen or aces or kings, right? He has to have a few more hands. Otherwise, he's just getting crushed by a field like this. So he does decide to call with the jacks. And like, I get all of the game theory stuff behind why he bet and why he called and all that stuff. But like, I just want to check and say, can we just check back? Can we go back in time and check back and just make this so much easier on ourselves? Like,
I mean, it's easier. It's a little bit easier, but like, let's pretend we check back and then Ike bets 120K on the turn. I mean, we're right back to sort of the same place. It's a little bit easier because now that means the turn bet would be less than whatever Ike's going to bet on the turn, admittedly. But it still is like already, well, there's the threat of a big river bet if Ike bets 120 on the turn, right? It's like still problematic. It's hard either way. So I don't know. I think he's betting one blind to make it easier on himself too. Like, because sometimes Ike's just going to insta fold and he doesn't have to go through all that difficulty, and maybe he can even get value sometimes, a little bit of value when he only bets one blind. But I understand what you're saying, and it does feel like it's really easy just to tap the table and like get some pot control here and get a streak closer to showdown, which we are not when Ike makes it 80K. Now, geez, we feel showdown feels so far away.
I like betting one blind a lot more against a not good player who I can like react easily to, like they're just going to fold all their shit that's going to fold anyway. And we get to clean up the equity. And if they raise, we just fold. Like it's not a big deal.
Right.
But this is Ike Haxton. He's got 50 million in Hendon. We can't go folding jacks if we don't have a reasonable amount of sixes in our range. We just can't do it.
Also, Ike knows that we don't have sixes. And Ike knows he does. We know that too. It's actually a very inexpensive call right now. It's two more blinds to call. Like, we should call. We're in position. We get to see what Ike does on the turn. Ike may have a lot of give ups on the turn once we call, because now it looks like we have a queen type of a hand, right? We have king, queen, or whatever. We're just holding, and like he might not think he can ever get us off that at these super small stack sizes, right? So a lot happens just by calling here, and we get to see what he does. So I think a call makes sense against Ike Haxton specifically, and a good player.
I do too. And he does. And the pot's 345K. And let's get really interesting, shall we?
Okay. This is real. This turn is really interesting.
The turn is the 7 of clubs. So now we've got queen 6, 6, 7, second club. It's a second club. Ike turns open-ended with his 5-8. He checks. He checks open-ended.
Yeah.
After check raising the flop with 8 high. It's super interesting. As Martirosyan, my initial thought would be like, oh, he had like 7-8 or something like that. And now he made a pair. That's what it feels like, right? So what do you think about Ike checking? What do you think about that decision?
I didn't get that. What'd you say?
What do you think about Ike checking?
I think it's fascinating. And so this is the kind of card that you're hoping for, right? That gives you a lot of license to continue, and Ike doesn't continue. Maybe, again, I might think to myself, well, we're so short. Once he's called, now he has something, right? He doesn't have king 10 anymore. He doesn't have king 10 with 2 back doors even, I don't think, because we're just not deep enough to make that kind of a play, most likely. Maybe it's so cheap in position. Maybe he can call with that once. But I would have expected Ike to continue on this card specifically. I wonder if Ike has a lot of give-ups on a lot of non-diamond, non-straightening type cards.
Maybe.
But we got one, right?
Got a good card, yeah. And, I mean, I know what happens in the hand, so it gets really saucy. But something that I sometimes think about against some of the better players that I play against regularly is like, I end up in spots like Haxton ended up on the flop, right? Where you check raise with some garbage hand and you get called and you're like, okay, the typical way this goes is if I turn equity, I bomb the turn and then I bomb the river and I just pray and pray and pray that they fold. Is there a different way that makes it more likely that they will fold than just the typical thing that everybody always does that's normal? Yeah. Can I do it a different way and get more fold equity? And I think that might be what Ike is thinking about when he checks.
Sure. I would have thought he could have, I would have thought he could just keep bombing either way if he really wanted to. If he wanted to, right? It's interesting. It's really interesting to check again.
Yeah. He's trying to find a different way.
Yeah. I'm saying even if he missed, I'm saying even if he didn't turn an open ender, he could have continued bombing.
I see.
That would have been another way to try, and he doesn't have to give up just because he doesn't pick up equity. It's harder in some ways because we need the guy to fold now, but still. Anyway, but he checks and he is not checking to give up is what that's the spoiler.
No. And what's interesting is he has to be given the opportunity to do something on the turn, which Martirosyan gives him. Sure, he can do something on the river, but something happens on the turn. Spoiler alert. Martirosyan's going to bet. He's going to bet 75K into 345. Once again, just a minuscule ant-sized bet.
He is clearly targeting a 7, right? Just like you said.
He thinks Haxton turned a 7. He I kind of like I said in Martirosyan's seat, it looks like Haxton turned a 7. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get just a teensy bit of value out of a 7 is what it looks like. I don't think he's trying to clean up equity anymore because any sort of equity is so small at this point, except for hands like Ike has, which you wouldn't really expect him to turn that type of equity in check. So
I don't know that we can successfully clean up equity against a hand like Ike actually has. And if we knew he was open-ended, we would probably be like, I can try and charge him for his equity, but I wouldn't expect. I either have to bet, I have to bomb the hell out of this, essentially moving all in here. I have to commit to the pot, which seems a little absurd. You could do it. You could decide to do it. You're betting 2 point something times the pot. Fine, but that seems crazy risky based on the hand we have in the board and the action.
It's not the right hand to do it with.
Right. So no, I agree. It feels like he's targeting exactly a 7. He's choosing a super small size, so a 7 can actually choose to call. Right? It's less than the raise on the flop is what he's betting on the turn. This is wild.
My concern would be, is Ike good enough to turn a 7 into a bluff now when he sees these sizings?
Right.
Yeah, I think he obviously is. He doesn't have a 7. He has open ended, and Ike now has an interesting decision, right? Because he's clearly getting the right price to call with his open ender, but he could also raise because he has 8 high. Mm-hmm. How do you lean against this very strange line for Martirosyan?
It's really weird. It feels like Martirosyan probably has a lot of queen type hands, right? Like top pair type hands.
Yeah.
Do we think we can get him off it? Actually, this line is probably, if we were to check raise on the turn, having already check raised the flop, it's probably more likely to get him off a queen than if we went check raise and then bet the turn, right?
That's exactly what I was talking about earlier when I was saying finding a different way.
I'm articulating it. Yeah. So that's pretty interesting. And the fact that he bets small instead of big is sort of interesting too, where it feels like he's targeting like a 7 exactly. It does feel like that. And always, it's got to be a 7, right? Maybe... I don't even think he's not even targeting like queen deuce suited here because he would bet bigger if he was targeting a queen. If he had ace queen, he could bet bigger because he can target more things, right? And he's willing to go with it and all those things. So, it is pretty interesting. I think because we have 8 high and we still are the guy who can have a 6 and the other guy really can't. I kind of like this. I kind of like raising here. It seems crazy, but I kind of like it. I like raising both flop and turn, I must say.
I do too, and that's what Haxton does.
It wouldn't have occurred to me to do it, but
no, probably not. But he's also committing to telling a good story against good players by raising to 175. There's such a temptation to raise more, right? You feel like against the general poker playing field, obviously you have more fold equity if you raise bigger, but these players are going to be math oriented, but they're also certainly going to be aware of if you're balanced or not. And Haxton has to raise to the amount that he would raise to if he had a 6. And I guess he would raise to 175 so that he could set up like a half pot river shove. That's basically what he would do.
It's so wild because it feels like, how can I ever get a queen to fold with this line I'm about to take, right? Like I'm gonna price the queen in on all streets by doing it this way.
I mean, the queen is not exactly priced in, right? If it's against what Haxton is representing, it's
of course
drawing very thin.
No, but thinking it from the point of view of minimum defense frequency and where we stand in our range as Martirosyan, a good queen can't really ever fold when we start with sub 20 blinds, right? And Ike is good enough to not have a 6 here. And
I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I don't know if this is part of the game tree that gets studied too often by these guys, right? The double check raise. Like it's a little, we're taking him outside of the normal realm of the game tree that he's used to. And not only is that going to be more difficult to navigate if you rely heavily on that, but it also means maybe you don't have to rely as much on these game theory principles because it's an anomalous event. And it's like, okay, I have to like experience this event for what it is. And I don't know if MDF makes sense in this spot when I just got double check raised and ICM is becoming a major factor.
I disagree really strongly. I think against a guy like Ike Haxton, you need to lean on those principles more, not less. Otherwise, he will eat you alive. Because if you're imbalanced in either direction, he's going to crush you. Right. So I understand what you're saying because this is probably not very studied. This part of it, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be thinking about all this stuff and figuring out, all right, well, what am I calling with against Ike? What am I not folding? Because there's got to be stuff I'm not folding that calls the turn and calls the flop and folds the turn. Stuff that calls the turn and is holding on pretty much all rivers here. The good top pairs feel like, what else do we have here? We have top, I guess we could have flopped to full house. We have 2 over pairs, and then we have top pair. That's most of it, right? And then, of course, we have jacks apparently too.
So let's put our brains in the gumbo and ask the question, if we are using these principles, does jacks fall under MDF? Like
that is the question.
Against this line?
Right. My inclination is it does not. I'm guessing if we call with jacks, we're also calling with like 8s, 9s, 10s on the check raise on the flop because it's kind of the same. It's really
does jacks have any particular blocker value in this spot as compared to those other hands?
I mean, we block queen jack a little bit, so that's nice. But 10s block queen 10. That's basically the same.
I mean, 8s and 9s we block 8-9, which is bad. There's maybe a hand, like obviously we see Haxton with 8-5, so maybe we don't like those hands as much because we block some of his bluffs.
I guess. But 9s also block queen 9, which is another hand Haxton is probably calling for 1 blind raise, 1 extra blind pre-flop.
But is he going to double check raise with the queen? At this point, I think Haxton is mostly repping a 6+.
That is a really, really good point, that he probably doesn't have just a queen anymore. It's probably just a 6. That's an excellent point. And that, I think, is what Martirosyan then flips in his head to decide, maybe I can't fold these 2 jacks right now. Even though, boy, I would really want to fold those 2 jacks on the second check raise. I'd just be like, I cannot hold on anymore. This is the end of me.
He calls. So it is, again, I guess he decides.
Very cheap. It's 3 blinds to call.
Yeah. But it's all very impactful at this point in the tournament. I guess he decides against Haxton. This is a hand we have to call with. The pot is $675K. Martirosyan has $335 back. So this is like, Haxton set it up exactly how he wanted to, I guess.
I mean, geez. As Ike now, you got to be like, all right, can I actually win this pot? Is this pot winnable? This pot may not be winnable, right? I mean, obviously I could make a straight. But besides that, is it even winnable?
I'm guessing the reason that Haxton chose the size that he did is because he believed there was a winnable amount of chips back in case he decided to go for it. Otherwise, I'm not sure he would have chosen that size.
Right.
So 675. River's the king of hearts. Almost never affects anything. Very hard for it to affect anything unless Martirosyan made kings full. That's possible.
I mean, right, because Martirosyan could have made top 2, but since Ike is really only repping a 6 anyway, it's all the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say this. If Martirosyan has king queen and held on the turn, I don't believe he would fold the river. He'd just be like, all right, well, this is in the bucket now that has to call, basically, right?
Yeah.
But he was maybe calling with that hand anyway. It's half pot.
Yeah.
It's allowed. He'd be getting, 3-1 to call on the river. He's probably, I don't know if we can fold it. So maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah, like you're saying, it doesn't have that much impact, except king's fold.
So should Haxton go for it?
Okay. If Martirosyan has a queen that doesn't have a king with it, maybe once in a while our bluffs do contain a king. Would we really go for it though? Or would we check if we made top pair?
I think we would go for it because of the half pot nature of it, and because Martirosyan doesn't really have too many sixes if he has any. So
right. Right. And if he has this beat, we're calling it off anyway, right? We're definitely calling now. So we might as well move in.
He's going to check back ace queen and queen jack and stuff like that. There's no value in him. Yeah.
Right. I think you're right. Okay. So we would move in if we somehow had a king, which is not impossible. We can have some bad kings, right? We can have king
X of
suited,
clubs,
but we wouldn't have that.
King X of clubs makes sense.
Right.
Because 2 clubs on the turn.
Yep. Okay. So there's some, but not too much. Not too much. But so it matters. So it's not like a card we love as Martirosyan, but it's not that bad.
So do you think it's enough for Haxton to move in though? Like because he knows he can have King X of clubs potentially. Like King 10 of clubs or something, King 9 of clubs.
King 9 of clubs. I mean, every bone in my body wants to give up as Ike Haxton when we get called. Our check raise gets called twice. It feels like Martirosyan is saying, I am not going anywhere. And now I've set it up, by the way. So I'm going to get 3-1 if you shove on me. So I don't even have to be right very often. And this is the kind of tournament where you really want to accumulate chips, So I may just have to hold on. Hope I win more than 25% of the time here, which I probably maybe do. Maybe. I don't even know. I wouldn't know. But like Martirosyan could have just folded the turn if he wanted to, right? So the fact that he chose to call, he could have moved in. He could have. I mean, moving in doesn't make any sense really. He would never move in.
No.
But he can call or he could fold. If he's going to fold the river anyway, he's probably folding the turn a lot. Now,
I mean,
with jacks,
game theory wise, like you're supposed to drop off part of your range each time.
Of course. But I'm saying practically when we give him this kind of a price, you're supposed to hold on with most of your range that gets to the river, right?
Well, we can also consider Ike's range, right? Because he's got to have to make a decision based on his range and where he falls in it. He obviously does not have the winning hand. He has 8 high. This is the second worst hand he ever shows up with, probably, which is like essentially the same thing as 4-5, as far as like the quality of the hand on the river. So that's a reason to go for it, right? Like if you're going to have some bluffs. All of our bad bluffs, though, I mean, we could say, well, this one's worse than this one, but if we have 10 high, it's the same as 8 high. It's the same as 5 high, we might not have,
right?
What I'm saying is we might not have those hands. We have to have the hands that allow us to play the hand this way up until this point.
Okay,
right?
That's true. Yeah, that's
so if he's
fair.
got King X of clubs, he's going to play out this way a lot of the time, and that's why he can go for value with that hand. And if he has King X of clubs and any 6 that he has, then he has a reasonable amount of value. He's going to have to balance that with some bluffs. Right. So we have to find some, right? And we have 8-5, we have 8-9, we have 4-5. Maybe he has gut shots on the turn too. I'm not sure. He might not do it with the gut shots. I don't know. We know he's doing it with the open enders. So
I mean, maybe there's some value to this too for Ike. I mean, this is going to be on stream actually, so never mind. I was going to say even if we move in, get called, everyone gets to see what we had, and there's metagame value, but everyone gets to see it anyway because it's on the stream. So there's no value to moving in. Everyone already gets to see it, except that they get to see that we did move in. Actually, there is value. I mean, for like all these other high rollers that he plays, he really has that play in him, as opposed to theoretically, I have that play in me, and maybe me and a few other guys, maybe a few guys do, but now I'm one of those guys that do too, and like it makes it hard for everyone else to know what to do when Ike check raises flop and turn, or just puts pressure on you because he just really doesn't have to have it, even when he's giving you an unbelievable price, So there is metagame implications here, even though this is a $200,000 buy-in event. Ike has $50 million in winnings. Ike doesn't need this one. There is value in people seeing him go for it, whether it works or not. So that's like a cherry on top, at least.
Okay, a cherry on top. So you think there is, but you do also think there is value in, like from a game theory perspective, having some bluffs, right?
I think there is, from a game theory perspective, I'm not sure practically if our opponent has very many folds once we get here like this. And so if our opponent isn't folding at least a third of the time, moving in is not great, right? Moving in is we're losing money. We're losing chips by moving it. So,
right, but that's not the only element of it, right? It's balance and metagame, like you're talking about.
Of course, you're right. But also, it's funny. I feel like so often we're on the opposite sides of this discussion in the past.
Yes,
right?
I agree. The reason I'm on this side is because these guys are at such a high level and they're clearly theory guys. Like, so I think it's important to take all this into account a little bit more strongly than if we're doing like day 5 of the main event and Lococo check raises with a garbage nothing hand and like John from Iowa is trying to figure out what to do. It's different.
I agree. There still are some spots though where you might think people are not really truly balanced, you know, because certainly they're human beings and they're not, even the really great players are not all, Vogel's saying is not perfectly balanced, right? He's trying, but he's not.
Yeah.
This is the kind of spot where I would guess we'd see more give ups when Martirosyan's called the check raise again on the turn and he's so short as well. He's put in a bit, it isn't like just Ike is short. Martirosyan is short too. This is Martirosyan's life, and he's choosing to put in more chips, understanding that Ike is often chipping the river, right? That's what you would assume, and still chooses to put that money in. So,
although you're advocating pretty strongly for a give up, which means maybe Martirosyan thinks that Ike has some give ups.
Well, this is the thing. Like, so Martirosyan, it seems. Can we say what happens and then keep talking about it? It feels like it would inform it. So Ike moves in, Martirosyan does fold.
Yeah.
And Ike wins, which is amazing. So Martirosyan, I guess, decided he's going to play Fifth Street Chicken with Ike, right? Fifth Street Chicken meaning, of course, this is a Bart Hansen term, meaning I'm calling the turn and I'm going to see if you bet again. And if you bet again, I'm going to believe you. But like, it's not easy to keep betting. And it feels like that's what Martirosyan's like, let's see if he gives up. You know, and if he doesn't, man, it's really hard to keep calling, right? So he believes Ike has some give ups. And I don't know how if you're Ike and you're bluffing, they're all the same, right? I understand this is, quote, the worst hand we ever have and blah, blah, blah. But really, we just want to have hands, I guess, that block the value that Martirosyan can call us with, if anything, because otherwise the bluffs are the bluffs, right? So this is a hand that doesn't block any of the value that Martirosyan can call us with.
But we don't have any of those. We don't have any of those.
It's really hard to have anything. It's like 10-9 of clubs, maybe.
10-9 of clubs.
That's one. I found one.
He's
maybe
not opening
10-9
queen
of
9.
not clubs.
He's probably not opening queen 9 off of this stack.
Probably not. Queen 9 suited, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe not. Probably not.
Maybe it's Jack 10. Jack 10 of clubs. That's the one.
There's another one. Okay. So there's like 2, but that's not enough. That's 2 combos, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. The bluffs are, once we're in this spot, we know we're losing. And if we don't have many things that block our opponent's value anyway, then maybe having an ace in our hand is good. If we have ace X of clubs somehow.
Ace X of clubs is the best. I was just thinking ace X of clubs is the best hand to bluff with.
Yeah.
Because we block ace 6 suited and we block ace queen.
And we block ace ace. Yeah. And ace king, which can't really be there anyway.
No, it's not there.
Yeah. But we block ace ace and ace queen and ace 6 suited. That is, having the ace of clubs in your hand is pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But even then, that's still not going to be that many hands, right? So
Haxton's going to move in with some of his ace X of clubs pre-flop, right? Like ace jack plus probably.
Maybe less than that too. Maybe just like ace 10, maybe a bunch of aces because it's Martirosyan opened the cutoff, right?
Hijack.
Okay. So maybe not. Yeah. But if Ike has like ace 8 suited, I don't know. He might call and he might move in. He's probably mixing with stuff like that, you know?
I'm not sure. I think they're playing a little more small ball, these high rollers these days.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
Sub 20,
maybe you're right.
20 blind stacks. So I think it's clear that ace X of clubs is the best bluffing hand, but there's not that many combos available of that.
There just isn't. Yeah.
So Ike goes for it and it works. Martirosyan folds relatively quickly, so I don't know what he would have done with a hand like queen 10 suited. We just won't ever know.
Right. Like where he's like, this is like my worst queen. It's not that different than jacks. I block a queen. Ike could have a queen.
Ike never has a queen.
Oh, right, because he check raised the turn. Right, he never has a queen. Right. So, yeah, it's basically the same thing. So it's just like, where does this fall in my distribution? Jacks feel like the bottom of our value calling range there on the turn, right? Like of the good stuff, that's got to be about as bad as it gets, right?
Yeah,
I think. Like,
probably.
I don't think we're calling 9s on the turn, even though it's
so
the
it makes
same.
sense from an MDF perspective to call turn and fold river with that.
Yeah.
I just don't know what he's doing with queen 10, queen jack. He's going to have to call with some queens. I imagine ace queen he calls. I imagine.
He has to. I think he's got to call. If he's not calling with ace queen, what's he calling with? King, king, and ace, ace only? And ace, ace is the same as ace queen anyway.
If he has ace 6 suited, I guess.
If he has it, sure, fine.
Or turn to boat 7-7, something like that.
Fine, but there's not very much there, right? I think he's got to call with more than that. Remember, we're getting 3-1 to call here.
Yeah.
We have to be right 25% of the time. So we have to call with a lot in theory.
Well,
which
not
is what
that
makes,
much.
which is what makes this so strong.
We had to also call the turn, right? So there's not that many combos total.
Well, fair enough. But clearly if we're calling with jacks, we have all our queens and better, right? So we have some queens here and we have aces and of course we have kings and we have... But we have to call with ace queen then, just because there's just... As we go up the ladder, there's not too much past it.
We might only have to call with ace queen plus because we have ace queen unsuited. I don't think we have queen jack and queen 10 unsuited. So that means we have a fair amount of ace queens. We have 12 versus 3 of those other ones. So we could probably chop those off and call with king, queen, ace, queen, king, king, ace, ace. And that's enough to get us there.
Maybe you're right. Okay. And maybe from Martirosyan's point of view, this is all just very straightforward, right? It's like, I call the turn because Ike is going to give up sometimes. It's relatively cheap. I look like I'm going to station him, so I don't have to always station him. And I've got enough other hands to call with. So that means when Ike has it, I fold sometimes. This is one of the hands that's just in the fold bucket, and that's that. It's unlucky for me that Ike didn't have it this time. When he takes this line, maybe it's all super straightforward for Martirosyan. It's like, oh, well, I feel fine about it, but it looks unbelievable when it happens.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just this so reinforces that I will never play in one of these things. Even if I win the lottery, why would I want to play against guys who make these types of decisions? Obviously at this point, $200,000, I don't want to buy in for $200,000 anyway, but I also don't want to go play a 1K that has this field. I really don't. Because those guys,
why would you?
They're so good. They're making these crazy decisions.
Well, don't worry. There's no 1K in the world that has a field like this, so you're okay.
I know.
You're going to be fine. But it is wild. What do you think is going on for Ike when he moves in on the river, knowing he's going to get called a fair amount, knowing when he gives the guy that price, Martirosyan's going to find a bunch of calls. What's Ike feeling?
I mean, he might be feeling nothing.
Yeah,
it might be nothing. It might be like, this is the play. I've studied this extensively. I know this is the play. I don't care what happens next.
Right. And actually, and there's some value in this not working. Although there's actually the move in is the value. It isn't whether it works or not.
There's a lot more value if it works.
Yeah. But moving in has value too because everyone gets to see it, which means people are going to be a little bit stickier now against me, and I can, move the needle just slightly towards more value in these spots now. And people are going to have to call me a little bit more because they saw me really do this.
It's quite a hand. It's quite a hand.
Quite a hand.
But it doesn't make anybody any money because neither of these guys cash.
No, don't say that.
Nobody cashes. Actually, they just canceled the tournament after this hand. They're like, the double check raise has happened. Everybody go home. You will return your buy-in minus the rake. We're keeping the rake.
Yeah,
because
check and raise is not allowed. Did you not see the sign? Yeah,
it's over. Yeah, and well, that's just an incredible hand by Ike Haxton.
It's incredible,
incredibly played,
incredible.
Yeah.
Music is my sunlight, and all I need is one mic, and I can show every single MC how it's done right. Every time I come by, I'm bound to leave them tongue-tied. I'm sipping on liquor, a quitter is what I'm not. We got one life, and I took a minor break, but I'm back to claim the throne. And gonna be traveling the globe, and still have time to make it home. And you gonna be